Hey man, let me tell you something. The Punisher is finally back on our screens, and boy is he sadder than ever, but I guess that's what Zero Naps does to a guy. At least it gave us this special presentation which kicks all kinds of ass. We've got the new biggest villain in the MCU. Frank murdered a guy with a pen in the nastiest way possible, and I have no clue how I'm supposed to edit a video about this because good god man, when I saw that content warning at the start, I knew we were in for a treat. That was a visceral, violent bloodbath. I was constantly saying hell yeah to myself as Frank brutally murdered people in ways I didn't even know were possible. All that being said, for as incredible as the action was, the story is definitely a retread of what we've seen in the past, which can be frustrating, but it leads to a long overdue new beginning by the end. The whole thing honestly felt like a test pilot for a new series in a way, like a refresher of the Netflix show For Better and For Worse as they catch people up with how MCU Frank is before finally letting him be the Punisher by the end. But it did make me want to see more of Frank in the future, so it did its job successfully. And that's all you're getting from me before we dive into all of the insane spoilers from this special. So consider this your final warning and go watch the Punisher kill people in ways that'll haunt your nightmares, then come back and hear me yap about it, okay? Alright, now that we're in the spoiler section of the video, I have to say, I have never been more happy in my life than watching that filthy dog killer die by the hands of the Punisher. I was sat here cheering at my television screen as that monster got what he deserved. If only you could have seen the expression on my face when they opened with that. Jesus Christ, man, what a way to set the tone and make me angrier than ever. The only bad thing about it is that I couldn't do it myself. I am so glad he got what he deserved. That is the most justified death in the entire MCU. No, maybe ever. As for the rest of the violence in this special, it is filled with so much non-stop, bone-smashing, adrenaline-pumping action that I can't show you, or YouTube is gonna do it all to me. But just know that the action in this f***ing rocks. This entire special is incredibly reassuring for the future of MCU Punisher that there aren't going to be any restrictions when he's got people gushing blood like a faucet on the same platform as the little Einsteins. Although, I bet Leo has some inner demons to him. He'd give Frank a run for his money. Well, I don't think we're going to see anything remotely as violent as this in Spider-Man Brand New Day, although that would be insane. With this special basically acting as a pilot for a new show, if Marvel does go forward with it, it gives me a lot of faith that we're going to be getting a proper Punisher in the future, and they're not going to hold back with his action scenes or the mature content in the special. Just take one look at One Last Kill, and it's very clear that the Punisher action scenes are in very good hands at Marvel Studios. Is there really anything more exhilarating than watching the Punisher mow down people while heavy metal is playing in the background? Yeah, actually, when he's doing it to Louis Armstrong in the background, because that is where it's at. Somehow that was even better. I have always been and forever will be a sucker for action scenes set to upbeat music. It scratches the right part of my brain every single time. The way these action scenes are choreographed feels so brutal as Frank has people coming at him from all angles and is just throwing punches left and right, trying to hit whatever he can. There is a primal desperation in the way he fights that does a lot to sell him as this uncontrollable ball of rage. Every single movement and punch was designed to do as much damage as possible, and it really comes across on screen. Especially in those bigger fights when he's making his way through a chaotic crowd. In the most complimentary way, it feels like a live-action Hitman level when you just go in guns a-blazing and hope for the best. Except for the fact that this is the Punisher, and he was able to do it flawlessly. I don't know what this says about me, but it was immensely satisfying to watch on screen. And you would think, after the 30th shot to the head, or the 4th person thrown off of a roof, it would get boring, but it never does. It is always so thrilling to watch. Whether it be Frank fighting his way from the ground level to the top of a building, to the high-stakes rooftop action, or just seeing him move like a wrecking ball through the city, it kicks all kinds of ass. It's Marvel violence cranked up to 11 as they don't hold back, and that dopamine rush hits like crack every single time Frank busts someone open like a watermelon. I'm honestly disappointed this special was only 44 minutes without credits because I wanted to see more of him kicking ass, and it feels like we were waiting for this one big final fight scene that never comes. I don't even mind Manucci not dying during this special because I think the actress did a great job bringing her to life and would love to see more of her in a full season, but at least we got 20 minutes of non-stop action as the Punisher just runs through people like a bulldozer. And the best part is that the cinematography for this special is great, so everything looks dazzling on screen. You can really tell they got Robert Elswit, the guy who did Nightcrawler and There Will Be Blood, to shoot this special. If we do hopefully get this Punisher continuation in the future, they better bring him back because I love the way his New York looks. Outside of one half-finished and very jarring CG model, the entire special looks gorgeous. The colors are crisp and look great on screen, which really helps with how bloody it can get as these splatters pop on screen. And there's so much clear intention with the shots as the action is displayed in some glorious ways. But what I loved most about it was how gritty and dirty New York was. It felt so real and tangible watching him charge through this grimy city with trash everywhere. So what I'm saying is that you can tell they shot on location. Boom! Take that, New York! Sorry, don't know where that came from. I guess that was the old me coming out, but I forgot New York is good now. Shout out Mayor Mamdani, you're doing great work out there. But because this was actually shot on location, everything feels so much more tangible. And when you're telling a street-level story like this, you need to buy it's actually happening on the streets and that it feels real. And they did an incredible job reflecting that in the visuals. Also, very glad they brought back the leitmotif from the Netflix show as well. That theme song was too good to leave behind, and while it might be remixed now, I'm just glad it's carrying over. I hope to God I get to hear that again in a packed theater opening night watching Brand New Day. I will ascend in that theater so fast. But here's the thing. No, that's the wrong character. Thank you, much better. Notice how I haven't really mentioned much about the overall story of this special yet, because it very much so feels like a retread of what we've been doing in Punisher spin-offs for almost, what, a decade now? Don't get me wrong, if this was our introduction to Punisher in the MCU, it would legitimately be perfect. The only problem is that we've seen this story 3 other times already, so instead of hitting as hard as it should, it left me wanting more. Both in the sense that I wanted to see him kill more people, but also in the sense that I wanted to see more from this character. Especially considering that the last time we saw Punisher, he escaped from an anti-vigilante task force prison and just left people there to rot. It feels like a missed opportunity to not capitalize on that story and instead go back to the Punisher arc we've seen so many times in the past. I will say, I do think it's the best that story has ever been, at least. The will they, won't they contemplative nature of Frank debating on being the Punisher works greater in a shorter runtime rather than drawing it out for a full season. Sometimes less is more, and in a tighter runtime like this, when I just want to get to him being the Punisher, that is so much more effective. Also, if I'm gonna meet this special halfway, it does work in the meta sense that it feels in line with this version of the character as it's commenting on how the Punisher has been stuck in this cycle of self-torment. It is directly addressing the fact that people want to see Frank become the Punisher as he struggles with that burden. And narratively, that does work and have a really strong emotional core to it, so I can't be too mad. But my problem with it is that we should be way beyond that at this point, especially considering the place he's already at in the MCU right now. You wouldn't stretch Spider-Man or Batman's origin out for an entire oh yeah, Gotham does exist. Okay, well that doesn't count because the Punisher isn't Batman. He doesn't have that depth to pull from. He's a character you want to hit the ground running with. And for some reason, Bernthal just wants to walk. Credit where credit is due. I think Jon Bernthal is probably giving his best performance as the Punisher in this special. He even gave us a new meme out of it all. Oh, no! 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 Can't wait to see that moment of trauma get used everywhere online. It is undeniable that Jon Bernthal has always been incredible when it comes to playing the Punisher. In every single one of his appearances, he has always given it his all and stolen the episode, delivering some of the hardest hitting monologues in the entire MCU. And more than maybe any other appearance, this special perfectly embodies that as he's able to show so much raw emotion. It is a really good performance. Almost a little too good, if anything. It really makes you wonder if there's something wrong with him to play a character this messed up that well. But I mean, surely he's a well-adjusted... Nope, okay, that makes sense. He's given a lot of juicy material to work with as we enter this introspective headspace for him mid-breakdown. Hey, yo, what the hell was he doing in that shot? And the work he's doing almost feels good enough to justify the special as we get to see the Punisher at his most vulnerable, but I fear that wasn't enough to win me over on doing this story again. Even a Karen Page cameo couldn't convince me, but it is very much so appreciated. I am always happy to see Deborah Ann Wool. I feel like she's allergic to having a bad performance. Every single time we see her, it is always something special to watch. I do really love that she has the same outfit on that Frank's wife had in the dream sequence to show that Frank only sees Karen as a placeholder. It's little details like that that show me MCU Punisher isn't a lost cause, as they do clearly still get it to an extent. But for as great as their chemistry is, now that Frank is finally the real Punisher, let's just move Karen away from him and stop teasing a romance that can never happen. Also, while we're talking about cameos, love to see Curtis again. Would have liked to see him appear as more than just a ghost, but I get that you need a familiar face to have these hauntings actually matter. Plus, it'll always be nice to see Marvel embrace the Netflix shows more and more. Let's get Madani back next, please. But I should probably finally address the elephant in the room and talk about why I think this project is a retread. Daredevil Season 2 portrayed Frank as a sympathetic character who, at the end of the day, loves what he does and is ready to be the Punisher. Then, for some reason, Season 1 of The Punisher has Frank immediately retire before he's brought back into the fight by a big conspiracy and then has to become the Punisher again, only to then retire at the very end of that season. Having the Punisher retire in general is antithetical to the entire reason the character exists, exists, but twice in one season is egregious. It doesn't help that season 2 started with Frank living a quiet life before once again being forced into conflict to save a young girl as he grapples with if he should become the Punisher or not. But at least by the end, it definitively ended with him becoming the Punisher. Then when we finally see him again in Born Again, he is happy to be the Punisher, living alone, miserable in that sewer, teasing Matt for not being like him. At that point, we've come completely full circle, and we are back where we started, where we should have been from the beginning anyways, as the Punisher is the Punisher again. So why is it, after 3 separate times telling this story, one last kill has Frank starting this special by retiring from being the Punisher and trying to have a quiet life, running away from the violence? My least favorite thing about this whole debacle too is the fact that they retcon the Nucci family as one of the people responsible for killing his own family. Guys, what are we doing here? The Punisher's origin works in the comics because it is a random act of violence that could have happened to anybody. Then for some reason, the Netflix show blew it out into this grand conspiracy where it almost seemed like he was destined to become the Punisher. But whatever, that's behind us now. What are we doing now in the big 2026 retconning it so there's still people he has to kill to avenge his family? We should be way beyond that, guys. I cannot believe we are still stuck in Punisher origin mode. I don't know why they decided to make Punisher the CEO of Surf Dracula, but that is clearly the only story Bernthal wants to tell about the Punisher, and this special presentation is a product of that. It basically acts as both of his arcs from the last 2 seasons told in under 45 minutes as preparation for the future of this character. Honestly, it feels like this special was made for people who haven't watched the Netflix show or want a recap on what the MCU Punisher is, and that's okay. I'm sure people who haven't seen those 2 seasons are going to enjoy that more than I did, and I'm so happy for them. Especially because it means they don't have to watch 26 goddamn episodes of the Punisher debating on if he wants to punish people. But for my taste, as someone who has seen this story 3 times already, and wanted them to follow up on the promise they made of the Punisher becoming the Punisher that they'd already been fulfilling, I wish this story hit harder. Maybe it's just Marvel trying to make Punisher more palatable for the mainstream, as they move away from him being a bloodthirsty and ruthless killer to more of a hero. The entire special is literally about him finally killing for other people rather than himself for once, portraying him in a more heroic light as he passes up on the idea of revenge in order to help a family who needs it. And yeah, that does work for the pre-established lore they set up for MCU Punisher, but what's so interesting about the Punisher to me is how upsetting of a character he is. I'm trying to walk a very delicate line here by explaining it's not me being mad it wasn't exactly what I wanted, it's more so the fact that we've seen this story before. So I guess it really just comes down to the expectation versus reality of this special. Is this version of the Punisher interesting even if he's very much so a hero? Yeah, I think it works. It's just when you take into account the context of the other seasons and his comic history, I know that he could be more, and it's holding me back from truly loving this special presentation. Thus comes with the burden of an adaptation trying to figure out if it's good on its own merit, or if it should have lived up to the story it's adapting. Because as it stands right now, he's basically just MCU John Wick with a whole lot more trauma as he avenges dogs and kills people with pens, but I know he can grow beyond that. Guilt, self-loathing, PTSD are all intrinsic parts of being the Punisher. I'm not saying they need to abandon that. I'm just tired of that causing Frank to retire over and over and over again after being forced into so many goddamn conflicts. I think it's just much more interesting for Frank to come to the conclusion and accept the fact that he doesn't deserve to be happy or have human connection for failing to save his family. That guilt shaped him and made him the person he is today, so let's see the effects of that as he takes it out on the criminal underworld. The only time Frank Castle feels alive is when he's at war. Killing criminals is the only way he can relieve this pain in his life. Let him be the Punisher already and stop edging us as he turns into one of the greatest potential man of all time. Because you could have tied it into Born Again and explained why he just left all those people in cages. You could have had him take down the task force in a self-contained story. Hell, you could have even done the same story you're doing right here, just make it so this new breakdown at the start has stemmed from the fact that he accidentally inspired a task force in the worst possible ways. That would actually justify this crash out and give us a more concrete placement on where this special lies in the timeline, because he has an actual interesting and new reason to consider if being the Punisher is worth it or not. It was right there and would ask a lot of really important questions that MCU Punisher just isn't tackling as his message is being misinterpreted. Instead, we just kind of pick up with Frank mid-crisis without any real reason why beyond the cycle continuing again and again and again. Exploring that sadness and trauma is a great first step and an aspect of the special I do enjoy, in a weird, sick, and twisted way, but it would be more impactful if that trauma was directed in a way that moved the character forward. To me, the Punisher is supposed to be a monster. He's basically a methodical serial killer as a protagonist, but with human emotions underneath the surface, as he doesn't want innocent people to get hurt and has that soft spot deep down, but when he locks in, he's supposed to be terrifying, transforming into this force of nature and a ball of rage unable to be talked down as he sees the world in black and white. Nobody likes the Punisher, not even himself. Frank Castle is not a role model or a hero or an inspiration, no. He's a cautionary tale of what happens when you break a man. He's supposed to see himself as a necessary evil who kills because somebody has to, or at least that's what he tells himself, because part of the fun about the Punisher is how other people question the idea if he just wanted an excuse to keep killing after the war ended. That debate is what I love and something I think we need to see more of, even if it's hard to stomach for some audiences. I guess that for now, MCU Punisher solo outings are caught in this cycle because the people in charge only want to tell that story, but what's great about this special, because I do still think it's good, is that it finally puts its foot down and confirms he's the Punisher. There should be no going back at this point. If we do get another season for the character, I better not see him burn that vest again. That's why I'm looking forward to seeing Frank in Brand New Day now more than ever, because it's a new dynamic to explore with the character as he is confirmed to be the Punisher. Peter's not like Matt, who wants to try and fix Frank with his Catholic guilt. Peter is someone who's gonna get sick of Frank's shit and let him know about it. He is there to humble Frank and act as the outside force in the MCU, telling him how much they hate him for what he's doing to the city. Even if, once again, Peter's a bum for not coming to help out. What are you doing, man? Riots are happening in the streets once again, and where are you? Jameson was right. He's a fraud. But that dynamic between him and Frank is going to be even more interesting because Peter has suffered a lot in the MCU with his entire family also being dead, but he still doesn't kill even at his lowest. That history is a fascinating thing to contrast against Frank as he sees that somebody isn't one bad day away from becoming him. Hopefully that means Frank is going to play even more of an antagonistic role in Brand New Day as well, as these conflicting ideologies go head to head with each other. There is so much potential there now that we've gotten Frank to this position, and a really interesting opportunity for these two characters to bond over the fact that their lives are built on grief and not being able to save the people they love. So yeah, I might not have loved the fact that this special retreaded the same story we've already seen before, multiple times, but it did its job well enough in convincing me that they know what they're doing with the Punisher because of what's in store for him in the future. If I had to give this special a rating, I would probably go with a strong 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's good, man. Watching the Punisher kill people on screen is always going to be fun. So I do recommend you go out of your way to watch it, especially if you haven't seen the Netflix show, because it promises us that the best days for MCU Punisher are still to come. As long as they keep Bernthal out of the writer's room. There is still a ton of hope for MCU Punisher. I just wish this special was the start of it all, because at the end of the day, it's kind of just a nothing burger, but it's still also a burger, so it's gonna be tasty. If that makes sense. I think it does. I might just be hungry, honestly. So on that note, I think I'm gonna go get a burger and pray it doesn't take Marvel another 4 years to release a special again, because god, I have missed this format. While I do that, why don't you let me know your thoughts on Punisher One Last Kill? I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I'm gonna kill your family crazy style and turn you into the Punisher. Wait, no, that would mean you have to kill me, doesn't it? Alright, how about we just scrap that and you subscribe instead? Or I'll just kill you with a pen. Who cares? Just subscribe.